for 6 days, 5 days now, so they're about ready to spaz. I am as well. What's going on, man? How are we doing tonight? Nice, what are you brewing? Nice. Ellis or pills? Excellent. 9010 is a good Hellas. Yeah, probably 20 more IBU, solid 15 at least. Audio sound good for you over there, and video look all right? Cool. Cool. Still trying to get it all right. There's so many settings you can tweak and do, and all sorts of fun stuff. Try and make sure we get everything right. No, not brewing tonight. Just chatting. I haven't even had a beer yet. I've been thinking about it. Which is sad, I guess. I shouldn't have to think about it. I should just do it. But nope, no brewing. I think I'm gonna brew either tomorrow or Sunday. Maybe Sunday. How about you? Indeed. Indeed they are. Playing with my green screen. So yeah, I think there is a delay. Probably like 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 seconds. I'm not looking at the chat directly in YouTube. It's being imported into my program. So I can get all my chats, because I do streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, all those different things. And I have a program that brings all the chats in, so it's probably a little delayed because it's constantly polling all the different programs. Plus, there's a stream delay, anyways, so that probably adds to it. If that's what you're talking about, or are you talking about like my mouth isn't matching your audio? Yeah, so I've been playing with my green screen. This is actually a green screen behind me, and that's what it looks like normally. But my wife is a teacher, and so they're starting to do this e-learning stuff, and I got her a green screen so she can basically do her teaching and then have different cameras and different backgrounds, so when she's doing her teaching that she can see. So I've been playing with my green screen today, and we've been playing with that. So good. I'm glad video and audio is good. That's really important to me. So yeah, it's green screen. I don't know how to show you. Ooh, I love side pour faucets. They're so beautiful. I can take off the chroma key. So give me a second here. I'll show you that it is actually a green screen. Let's see if this works. You see the green screen behind me? I mean, it's literally actually my brewery behind me, but like I said, with the green screen, it's it's kind of cool and different. Anyways, I'm learning that for her so she can do her online learning, so that's fun. Let's see if I can fix it now. Yeah, so here we are back in the brewery. But the cool thing about the green screen is now when I do my brewing interface. Oh yeah, it took a long time to figure it all out. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a night and day deal. And it doesn't help that I'm wearing green, so that's a whole nother level of fun shit. But the cool thing about the green screen now is that when I do my brewing overlay, so normally when I'm doing my brewing overlay, I can I have these little like camera windows in. Well, with the green screen, I seamlessly blend into the background now. So if you look at my brewing interface here, you'll see that now I seamlessly blend into the brewing system. So now I can have my camera overlay, but you don't actually lose any of the brewing system. So green screen is super cool in that regards, that I can just overlay into the brewing system, and you guys can still get a full picture. So that was fun. I played with that today. So no, it's cool. It works out well. I mean, I basically went behind the went behind my streaming setup, snapped a picture with my phone with the same lighting and all that stuff that we use, or that I use. It's just this picture is now superimposed, behind me instead of it actually being the picture. So if I actually leave and go into the brewery, you won't see me obviously because it's the actually touching the green screen right now. So, anyways, I geeked out about that. That was kind of cool. I thought that was fun. Um, where were we here? I was being stupid. Uh, extra pale ale. No. I haven't. I haven't even tried, to be honest. I really like that beer, but I think it's oh gosh. Let me think about it from memory. I think it's 2 row and caramel 40, and it's like Fuggles, Horizon, and there's one other hop. Fuggles, Horizon, something like that maybe. No, but I haven't played with it. I just made a batch of the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale-ish beer. I've been really drinking a lot of that as far as that goes. It's such a simple, beautiful beer. So that's, for some reason, with W stuff, I'd go Pale Ale Malt, Caramunic 1 or 2 or 3. I mean, they're all close enough. Probably 2. So Pale Ale, I would go about 90%. Caramunic 2, I'd go about 10%. And then I know it's got Fuggles. I think it's got Horizon. Just enough bitterness, maybe like 40 IBUs. I can sit down and sketch it out. Neutral ale yeast. You know, standard stuff. I mean, it's a traditional pale ale, just like Sierra Nevada. So my Sierra Nevada, I've been using pale ale malt, 90%, 10% Caramunic 3, and Perla at 50. My first hop edition is 50 always, never earlier, depending on how you want to talk about that. Never before 50, so never in between 50 and 60. So that's my first one, Perla. That does the main bittering. Then I have a what is it? Cascade at 30, and then a Cascade at 0, no dry hop or anything. I mean, it's just a solid, like, old school pale ale beer. I really enjoy that. And the Summit Extra Pale Ale is very similar. But I mean, that's my go-to around here if I want something fresh and whatnot. They've been doing a really good job lately of brewing solid beer. I'm not a big fan of the rest of their lineup. I know they have like a Keller Pils and some other stuff, and it's all right. They had one beer, I think they're making it all year round, that is Dakota Soul, which is their Pilsner style beer, and it's brewed with 100% barley from North Dakota, South Dakota. Mark Stotterud, the owner, is has a brother or something that has a family farm. They, whatever the story is, they started growing some barley out there and started brewing it. Yes, they do. If you contain your boil well enough and you're not boiling too hard, and your boil off percentage is not wicked high, you definitely can taste the 50-minute. Nope. In fact, I don't make too many beers that have anything closer to 0 than 30, because then it gets way too overpowering. Even my Pilsners, with a soft boil and even my Pilsners, I can go with a single 50-minute addition and get plenty of hop flavor, and that's the way I do it. uh, it's a great question. Question being, how do I feel about? I should since there's multiple streaming platforms. I'm going to actually say the question so everybody can hear it, because you know, a lot of people are just don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I had a question about how do I feel about boutique maltsters. um I think a lot of people, I'm gonna really have to think about it. I think a lot of people want to love the boutique maltsters because they're local, and a lot of what's going on right now is a push to local, support your local. Um, if it's a question of freshness or uniqueness, then I do think it's cool. Um, you know, as far as I wouldn't say we're we're we don't have many options. I mean, there's a million, not a million. I mean, there's what, 10, a solid 10 like big boy maltsters that will. Oh no, he said sorry to put you in a tough spot. It's not a tough spot. It's actually it's a fantastic question. Um, that takes some thought to actually talk about, because there's a, we'll just call it a dozen, a strong handful of professional maltsters, and so we can get malt from around the world. So it's interesting that a lot of these boutique maltsters have popped up because I mean, we have no shortage of professional maltsters that really understand what they're doing. Not that a boutique maltster doesn't, but they don't necessarily have, the boutique maltsters don't necessarily have the same level of quality control, QA, QC, of the big guys, which means you're gonna get more differences, and whether that's good or bad, you're going to get differences in modification. You're going to get difference in kilning and colors, and friability, and all those different things. If that's something that doesn't matter to you, or if they're really close to you and you can get fresh malt from them, I don't know. It's hard to say. You'd have to do a side by side to see if the malt they bring to the table is better than the malt you can get, but probably cheaper. See, my biggest question mark with that is that why do you need to do a boutique when you can get something from, say, RAR, who's probably my favorite American maltster, or Weyermann, who is my hands down favorite international maltster, for cheaper, more consistent than the boutique. I don't know if it's like nostalgia, not nostalgia, but like kind of a bragging thing, or what. I actually had a go around with a boutique maltster about a year ago, where I saw that they were growing their own barley. They're from Minnesota. They're from down south of Minnesota, but they were supplying malt to a local brewery that I was helping out, consulting at the time, and the local brewery swore by the malt. And I was like, well, shit. If there's a craft maltster that's close to me and that can knock out some high-end malt, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. So I contacted those guys, and the first thing I asked for was a malt analysis sheet, which is, in the professional world, is pretty, like, I mean, 101. Like, if I'm gonna buy your malt, what is it? What different malts do you have? What is the kilning? What is the diastic power? What am I looking at? And they didn't have one. And they said, well, we're working on one, you know, we're getting it tested and all that stuff. So I said, all right, well, when you get your malt analysis back, let me know, and we'll go from there. Because I'm not going to buy the malt sight unseen. I don't know what the hell is going on with it or what. So they got back to me a few months later and sent me like an Excel sheet with like 4 or 5 different parameters that really didn't tell me what I needed to know. And basically they asked me why I wanted to know, and I said because I do a step mash, and you know, I tailor my steps and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, well, you don't need to with our malt. It's just, you know, you can do one rest at, you know, 152 and you're fine. And I said, well, I completely realize that, but that's not what I do. And so anyways, to make a long story longer, we ended up meeting, and I ended up getting a couple 100 pounds of malt from them to test, because what I said is, have you had anyone step mash this? Have you had anyone give you any details on, like, you know, your extract percentage? Basically do all the math. And he's like, no. And I said, well, let's figure it out. And so I got a couple 100 bags of malt, or 100 pounds of malt, sorry, not bags. And he gave me some of his Pilsner malt, and I had a choice between like 6 different bags, and they ranged from like 1.5 Lovibond to 2.0, and I took the 2.0 just because I didn't need a super light malt. And so I ran that through its paces, did a step mash. I found that it never cleared, and it was really it was kind of weird. The wort tasted kind of funny, but I was like, well, whatever, and I fermented it out, and I tasted it, and it tasted like if wet hay sat out in a farmer's field and got moldy, and it kind of tasted like dirt. It kind of tasted sour. It kind of tasted rancid. It was really strange. And so that would have been the first ever infection that I ever had in, you know, 1,400 batches of beer. Not to say it won't happen, but it could. So I dumped that beer and immediately made another beer, same process, different fermenter, same flavor. And so I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. So I went back to them and I said, hey, you know, I made 2 beers with this malt, and both of them are really funky, and I'm not the type of brewer that has this kind of stuff happen to me. I wasn't getting the extracts that I normally would get with the real malts, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he came back and he said, oh yeah, we must have had some issue in storage or steeping or whatever. And he said, but no one else has told me about this. No one else has even brought this forward. So I think it's a problem with your stuff. So I immediately turned around and made a beer with Byerman malt, and it was as normal, fine, and no off flavors, no weirdness. The mash behaved as it should be, and that was the end of that craft maltster. So with my one try, I struck out, and I basically said, if I can get Byerman from BSG, you know, for 50 cents on the dollar, there's no point whatsoever to explore any of this. But like I said, I realize that some people don't have access, and maybe it's easier for them to get craft malt. Maybe not every craft maltster is the same, but what I found in my small n equals 1 test is that it was not good. Not good at all. I ended up I ended up sending some grains to BSG to their lab to test them, and it had some kind of fungus, some kind of spores and fungus. So obviously that malt was rotten, and that's kind of where I left it. Oh man, the question was, what is Shell's current best? Shell's is a local brewery, a bigger brewery down in kind of south western Minnesota and in New Ulm. And I used to be a big fan of their beers. About 2 years ago, they did an extensive brew house remodel, and I don't know if it was adding capacity or changing things, but they went to a different boil, and it's a much harder boil. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but what I taste in the beers now going forward is, since that remodel, is a very vegetal hop flavor. And I have seen that in my personal brewing to be too hard of a boil. And I noticed a lot of their beers, almost all of their beers, have this, it's like a harsh hop and vegetal. And I'm not a fan. So I haven't had any Shell's beer, for probably a year. In fact, the last Shell's beer I had was a shit ton of sours from Jace Marty, who's running the Star Keller, or whatever his offshoot is of the brewery. I was at a presentation for was it the Master Brewers of the Americas, MBAA, or was it, I think it was MBAA. I was at an MBAA seminar, and Jace was there talking about the sour program at Shell's, and he brought a bunch of beers, and they were sour, and I strongly personally dislike sour beers, and so all I can tell you is they tasted like sour, and I wasn't a fan, but they were fine. They were good beers. They do some really strange, interesting things with the sour side, like he's not allowed to sour anything at the brewery, and they boil the wort and they truck it over to the Star Keller, which is in an off-site location, and he's only allowed to sour things there, and they're very anti-sour at that brewery. So I mean, I don't know what Shell's current best is. To be honest, I would pick Summit over that. So I got another question. What are the situations when you don't follow the Reinheitsgebot? In my personal brewing, I do, for no reason other than it's really difficult, and I enjoy a challenge. When I don't follow it, a lot of my beers in my recent past that I've been doing have not followed it, because I'm trying to get the most data I can with different methods we talk about, like yeast deoxygenation, so certain low oxygen methods. I'm trying to amass as much data as I can, and a lot of those methods that we talk about in the low oxygen brewing kind of violate the Reinheitsgebot, and so I'll violate it to do that, and to do like yeast deoxygenation, and to get the data points on like how long it takes and how efficient it is, and to get data points on Brutan B and different filtering, or not, no filter, I don't filter, different finings, kettle finings, mash finings, those kind of things. So a lot of the most recent beers I've been doing are non-Reinheitsgebot compliant, just for the addition of those random things, whether it be Brutan B or any MASH antioxidant like antioxidant SBT or the yeast deoxygenation, so stuff like that, just to amass data. But in my normal stuff, I keep it pretty clean and pretty straightforward. On the cold, on the cold side, it's 100%. It's 100% following of the Reinheitsgebot, meaning once it gets in the fermenter, it's naturally carbonated and all that fun stuff. I don't filter. I can't personally filter without noticing a large hit in beer quality, so I don't filter and I don't fine either. So both of those will definitely add to the dissolved oxygen, so I don't do that. So hopefully that answers the question. The next question is, are there any under the radar nationally available beers that you consider drinkable outside of the usual suspect? There's a lot of beers I consider drinkable. I've been really lucky as of the last couple of years to be really turning out products in my house that I really enjoy. So I don't commercially go out very much and purchase beer. I keep a pretty well-stocked range of beers that I prefer here, and so what are some good ones that I would go for? If I'm going macro, I'm gonna go with Coors Banquet. It's got enough flavor. I mean, obviously it doesn't have much flavor, but it's got enough flavor and enough body to actually resemble something. I enjoy Coors Banquet. What else? What else do I seek? There was a local brewery to me, Buddha Pills. Buddha Pills was turning out some really good beer. In fact, when I had their Weiss beer, it was easily the best one I've ever had in the United States, and I would say top 5 ever. It was so beautiful. I still think it is a good beer. They had a Helles that the first run of that Helles was magnificent. But recently their quality, I feel, has really gone downhill, and I won't actually drink any beer from them anymore because necessarily need to stare at my stupid face. So there's that. Like 5.2 or something like that, it's basically ineffective. Don't hold me to that. Definitely fact check that. But I think it's something like that. And it might be a 5.3, but so a lot of the reason to lower that pH there is to help with flocculation of your hot and cold break and to help your kettle findings work more. The kind of the secondary, I would say the secondary reason to do that would be because that will lower the pH and allow your yeast, because your yeast will have to lower the pH of the wort to start fermenting. So the closer you can get down there without being crazy, because if once you start going below 5 as far as like a knockout pH, then your findings and your break, you're gonna have issues. So really the sweet spot is like 5.1 to 5, I would say. You know, we'll call it 5.2 to 5.0, somewhere in that range. 5.1, I usually land right around 5.1, 5.07, somewhere right in there. I like to hit that kind of sweet spot, that band. If you get too low, if you go 4.9, 4.8, you're gonna see problems in your break formation. You're gonna see your kettle findings aren't really working the way they should, and so but that would help you with lag time and all that fun stuff, because then the yeast, you really wanna. Another reason why you wanna knock that pH down is to break any of the hardness that is there left. So we all know that kind of pH is this falling scale of, you can add, you know, no change, boom, the bottom falls out. And really where you want to get is to right before or right when, well, you don't want to pass when that bottom falls, but you want to get really close. And so to knock out all that hardness will allow your yeast to have to excrete less acid. It'll be a quicker fermentation and a more vigorous fermentation, because they'll just be more happy. So what I like to do is, like I said, go 5.1, right around there, you know, 3-4 points either way, you're golden. I don't think you have to nail it 100%. Just like I don't think you have to nail mash pH 100% either to accomplish what you want to do. I mean, 0.3, 0.03 on either side, you're in your wheelhouse. So that's kind of what I shoot for, and that seems to help me. Again, n equals 1. This is just me trying to do the best I can do, and I found that this works the best for me. Yeah, so then Joe said, I just landed at 5.08 on the knockout of the Pilsner I have right now. Thought it looked like it was brighter in my test tube. Absolutely. That is going to be wham bam. That's exactly where you want to be. That's going to be solid. No, that's... I mean, in traditional German brewing, they say 5.2 and below. So, I mean, whatever. I find that I mash around 5.4, get into the boil kettle at 5.4. 10 minutes left, I'm at about 5.3-ish. And then I just do that final knockout and drop 2 points roughly. And that seems to work really well for me. So I just had another question too. What temp step do I correct mash pH? Well, I guess that all depends. Like for me, I like to correct mash pH. I auto dose my sour glute, and I start auto dosing my sour glute on dough in. So once dough in is complete, and I dough in between like 133 to 135 usually, and so I'm starting to adjust then. And I really want to adjust. I want to complete my adjustments as best I can. At least don't have them wildly out by the time you start beta, because beta is, I'm not going to say beta is more sensitive than alpha when it comes to enzymatic action and that kind of stuff, but you want your beta to be happy, because you have that short time window with it. I mean, you get 20 minutes roughly before the half-life starts, and you know it looks like a mountain peak, and once you hit 20 minutes you're coming back down the mountain. And so you really want to be on the nuts when you start going up the mountain. And for me, I try and adjust before I hit. That's another reason why I go in a little lower, is so I can adjust pH before beta. So I would say definitely adjust before beta, and stop adjusting once you're 30 minutes into the mash. It's pointless basically. So I would just try and nail it as best you can. I would always err on high, because it's much easier to dose acid than to dose base, and try and raise that. So I in my brewing, I've always erred high, and because it's always easier to add acid than it is to add base and to dick around with that. So that's what I would do. Another question: what are my thoughts on polygel silica gel plus PVPP in the mash? Been playing with the findings and timings a bit, and it seems initially promising. That's actually really cool. I played with it. I have a whole bag of polygel that I've had for years, and I started actually playing with mash editions probably 3 years ago. And it was polygel. I do a lot of recirculation. I do a fast recirculation. I use a mash bag that is not like a normal mash bag. It's much finer in microns than like the normal brew in a bag, whatever you want to call it. So I noticed for my setup that I did not see any benefits to doing that. The other problem I was having was how to dose that, because that is a powder. I was having issues trying to figure out how to dose that properly. So I tried like some deoxygenated, deaerated water, mix a slurry, shoot that into the mash, and it just wasn't really easy for me to do. Not as easy as it is for me to do in the boil kettle with an opening and that kind of stuff. So I did abandon it. But for reasons like I stated, my fast recirculation, my mash bag that is finer than normal, and all that kind of stuff, the way I condition, the way I crush my grains, and all that kind of stuff, that all kind of matters. So I didn't see any benefit with it, but that's not to say, again, this is just me. I'm just me. Much of what I say is just what works for me. I don't know what's going to work for others. Everybody's different. So, but I am that makes me super happy that you are playing with that, because I love when people do things that are kind of out of the norm, as it were, and actually test that kind of stuff. It makes me feel better, because I'm constantly doing that stuff, and it makes me happy when other people do it too. So please, I believe I saw your post on that. I don't know what forum, if it was the Low Oxygen forum or where. I think it was. I saw your post on that, and that's really exciting, and I think you should keep playing with that and see where it leads you. I'll go get a bag and show people who might wanna know. Give me a second. So here's the polygel I was using. Let's see. With my dosing rates. So for anyone who can kind of get their hands on it, it could be fun to play around with. I also played around while I was back there looking. I also played around quite a bit with this, which is Spindisol SB1 also from AEB. All this stuff is from AEB. AEB sent me a big package of all their different stuff, the SBT and all the other stuff to test out and give them some data. All my stuff is straight from Italy. It's still in Italian, 100% Italian, so that's always fun trying to translate that. I don't know Italian. But I did play around with this quite a bit too, and in the mash and in the boil. And I really didn't notice enough to keep playing with it. So some more questions coming in. Am I using a Kovna valve on my boat? I don't even know what that is. What is that? Is that a manufacturer? I'm using a butterfly valve, a 3-inch butterfly on my boil kettle. My next question was, what is your pitch rate and temp for Weiss? Weiss is an interesting subject. I was asked by Beer Advocate to write a piece about Weiss, so I did. It's out there somewhere. If you search for Beer Advocate and Hefe Weiss beer production or something like that. Anyways, my pitch rate for 5 gallons or 20 liters or manufacturer. No, it's some China special. I got it from AliExpress. It's not even in English. Weiss production. So, number one, you need to pick what Weiss you're shooting for, because they're all going to have different pitch rates and temperatures. For me personally, my favorite Hefeweizen or Hefe Weiss beer, Hefe Weiss beer, is Weihenstephan. For my Weihenstephan, the grain bill is something like 60% wheat, 35% pills, 5% Carahel. For that beer, I do obviously a step mash, but an acid rest. It's a 30-minute at 30-minute at 44 C, 118 degrees, I think is what it is. God, it's been so long since I made one. It's been 2 years since I made one. I believe it's right around 118 degrees, 114 degrees. My God. Here, give me a second. I'm speaking out of my ass right now. Um, I'm just trying to look it up so I don't speak wrong. It's been a while since I made one. Um, all right. Well, give me a minute. I gotta run to the bathroom quick. So give me 1 minute and I'll be back. All right, I'm back, and I found it. Okay, so here's my Hefe Weiss beer um, W. Hey, I was half right. So 60% wheat malt, 35% pills, 5% Carahel, step mash, 30 minutes at 114. I think that's 42. Check me on that, Fran. 42. And then I step up to and do the normal step mash, 144, 147, 152, 163. You know, your standard brow welt mash, 170. Boom. Then what I do is 12 IBU, Hallertau, No mash acidification, a longer rest. That's going to promote the phenolic side. Then when you ferment warm and don't pitch a whole lot, that's gonna go to the estery side, and so you're doing this balancing act. And so the reason I do it like I do it is because I have a longer acid rest, so I want to ferment warmer, so I want to balance the cloves with the banana and stuff like that. And I find that that W's beer is more banana-y than some of them to me, and so that's why another reason why I push that temp up. So that's what I do. I like it. So yeah, 761 because Dan's the man. Then I did have another question. I'm using Silica Sol and Polyclark 10. Yep. Silica gel and zero gel seem to be really tough to get our hands on. My Silica Sol, just 30%, similar to SB1. Yeah. The interesting thing about SB1 that I always found interesting, and that I just remembered, is that this says it conforms to the Reinheitsgebot. So this is funky with my green screen. So, but it does say, it says, oh Jesus, Conformal Reinheitsgebot hat, conform, whatever. I can't read it. And just add a buongiorno to it, and that's how it is. Pitch at 20 or lower. Yeah, I mean, it's 18, whatever. Let it kind of free rise. The only other thing is you're supposed to have 50% dead space in your fermenter, because that shit just explodes when you use the 3068, which I don't know if I said that, but yeah, 3068, you have to. That's W's yeast. So yeah, that's how I only make like one a year, because I think I really want one, and then when I brew 5 gallons of it, I'm like, well, I really only want out a 6-pack, and so I sit on it. In fact, I bet I got there's a excess beer fridge next to me, and I bet I got a can conditioned. Let me check. I do. So this is can conditioned, and this has been in there probably a year. Should we crack it and see what it's all about? I haven't eaten dinner yet, but I haven't had a beer yet either, so. Do it. All right, give me a sec. I'll go get, I think I got a glass back here. Ah. Glass. That's interesting. Sorry. Shake the glass, or shake the can, or leave the can. Now the other thing is, I do also can condition all my. If you're trying true app, I do can condition all of them. There's that too. Anthony, Tony, whatever you want to be called. What's your tried and true? He asked, what's my tried and true app? App for what? Oh, were you just trying to say approach for hopping in APA? Am I shaking this? Am I? Here. All right. Let's see. Good foam. Let's see if I can do some ASMR. I think that's what it's called, right? Where all those people listen to shit. So there's a little foam creeping out. Foam doesn't taste half bad. It's definitely more of a crystal ice at this point in juncture. 1 second. Crazy part is that it still has tons of fresh malt flavor. That's crazy. And no oxidation, which is really crazy. The glass hat, yeah. So that's what I did. I poured Yep. Dan, I'm on it. While we're waiting for this to settle, question is, what is my tried and true approach for hopping in APA? Timing IBU wise, generally. Honestly, I don't brew a lot of them. I brew two, basically. And my traditional one that we spoke about earlier, which is like the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. So that hopping regimen is 50, 30, 0. My house pale ale that I do with a shit ton of like Citra and Simcoe and Amarillo and all that, that is 20-10-0. I shoot for about 35 to 40 IBUs for my house pale ale, and that's all from the 20-10-5-0 on. It's 4 editions, 20-10-5-0, and you're trying to get 35 to 40 IBUs from basically the 20 and the 10 minute edition, and it uses some Simcoe, Amarillo, so some higher IBU hops, but you still got to add quite a bit. I'm trying to think of the recipe off the top of my head. I haven't brewed it for like a year, so I don't know exactly on my hop amounts, but I want to say it's something. I want to say it's about 6 ounces of hops total. No dry hop. Well, I take that back. I do a dry hop, but it's hop extract, and that's at the Spunding keg. So it gets 10 mils of like a Citra and Amarillo kind of blend, I think is what it is. And so that's what I do for that. So it's not, I'm not, sorry, I'm not super specific, but no, I don't. I try and not dry hop as much as humanly possible because it's a nightmare with the spunding. Anytime I do any dry hopping, it's with hop extract. So here we are. You can see the yeast coming down. Let me try and get in front of it. Oh, wrong way. Get in front of it so the green screen doesn't go bonkers. We'll let that do its thing, but I mean, the can does smell a little old. Just from aroma, but the taste had a lot of lingering malt still. So give me a second, I'll show you what my hop extract for dry hopping looks like. So I have two different extracts for dry hopping, and they're both clear. One has a T, and one is blank. This one is Citra. This is pure Citra, and this one with T is a blend of Amarillo, Simcoe, and another one of those hops. Is it oh, I can't think of it right now. But these are my hops, and so my dry hops. So if I'm feeling real crazy, these are in 10 mil syringes. I'll add 20 mil to like an IPA. Otherwise, it's usually 10 mil of this Citra is what I do. No, not Azacca. It's another one of those fruity hops that are always in together with those. It's not Azacca, or however you say that. It's Simcoe, Amarillo, Citra. I can't remember. Sorry, when I taste beer, I can't focus. I go through just this crazy range of trying to taste all these different flavors and whatnot. No, it's not Mosaic either, because Mosaic definitely has its own definite flavor. It's one of those other tropical hops that are not super new school, but something like that. So let me explain the beer. First of all, it's a little old. I would say it's a little old. It hasn't lost any of its malt flavor. It's still exploding with fresh lingering malt, but I'm starting to pick up well, let me back up and say this is an Urweiss, and so it's heavy in the Munich. It's Munich in place of the wheat, so that's why you get this dark orange character. So I think that's throwing me off a little bit because it's still pretty good. I'd drink that. There's definitely a little sweet tarts thing going on, where there's like this this kind of tart sweetness that I don't want to say it's sour. It's just tart, and it's just like chewing on sweet tarts. That tartness. There's an estery profile there. So clove is really down. Banana is still there. So I get banana, and then there's this ester. This ester is in like the middle. There's an ester I don't particularly care for that I would attribute to age. Kind of after the initial drink in the mouth, swallow. If I swallow again quick, it presents itself there faintly. Otherwise, it's actually a really decent beer for being as old as it is. Mildly interesting aging experiment, I guess. They were can conditioned and then moved right to the fridge, this fridge right next to me, and they haven't been touched in, well, they haven't left that fridge unless I would grab, a couple beers to bring upstairs. So they've probably been here a year. Not a year, really close to a year. But they haven't traveled and they haven't left, and that's a pretty consistent fridge. So that's really interesting. I can tell it's not like 2 weeks old fresh, but it is still amazingly fresh for how old it is. No lingering malt, no lingering malt lost, no cloying sweetness. It's still refreshing, decently dry. There's that interesting little sweet tarts thing going on. It's a really decent beer, which is really surprising actually. Have I done any sensory training beer wise? Yeah. I mean, I did all the BJCP shit. Got the judging stuff, and I did some super taster tests. I am a super taster, so that helps. I don't know. Not really. Just what I found is you can either taste it or you can't, and you can get training to help identify like the biggest thing that I would say that the training helps people is to put an associated flavor with the flavor you're tasting, i.e. me saying I don't know what it is, but it kind of tastes like sweet tarts when you eat sweet tarts. And so it's formulating like flavors, and so that you can describe them. Because if you give this beer to my wife, who doesn't really know, she might pick up on the tartness, but not be able to associate it with a flavor and a mental picture of what you're trying to say. So I don't know. I mean, and all that shit, the more fresh it's gonna be. And so normally I really don't try and age stuff very long. Um, I did want to try. I did purposely a warm fermented lager because my lager yeast was a little bit older, and my Kolsch yeast that I brewed a Kolsch a week ago Sunday, I think. Um, yep, have a good one, Fran. I brewed a Kolsch last Sunday, and my Kolsch yeast was fucking. I popped it open from the pack, and it smelt all weird, and it was still pretty fresh and stuff. So I don't know what was up with that. So my lager use was getting a little older, so I did a warm fermented lager. Warm being like 63 degrees, the same as a Kolsch. And so that was done in like 3 or 4 days, and I harvested that yeast and whatever, and I was gonna sample it tonight. That was my goal. So we'll see that. But I guess that was a roundabout way of saying I really don't let things age too terribly long, because I can really, especially in the keg, especially like with my lagers, like my Helles and my Pils, I can really start to see them kind of fall off. And so no, not really. Not really. I'll be right back. I'm gonna pull a sample of that fast fermented lager. I really don't have high expectations for it. I'm sure it's gonna taste absolutely fine. And it's going to my parents' house, and where I keep 3 beers on tap when it's, well, at this point, it might not go to my parents' house because who the hell knows what's going on anymore. But it was slated for my parents' house, where I keep 3 beers on tap, and it doesn't seem to phase any of them, whatever I throw on there. So give me a minute, I'm gonna go pull a sample, we'll take a look at that. Well, I don't love it. That's 110% certain. Tastes like a macro American lager. So I guess in those regards, people are going to be happy. I don't understand. I don't understand how people can ferment warm and say that that makes a beer that just tastes like it's supposed to taste. It tastes like Have you guys ever had malto meal? Specifically the vanilla kind. Original, I think is what they call it. To me, it tastes exactly like malto meal. Like 100% malto meal. Original, vanilla, whatever you want to call it. Like, if I close my eyes, it is 110% malto meal. Not that that's bad or good, but normally it doesn't taste like that. Hey man, how's it going? Not that it's bad, because it's not. And there's definitely some esters from the yeast. This is L17, which already on its own is a expressive yeast, we'll call it. So I don't understand how you can do that warm fermented and compare it to a cold fermented. It's so starkly different. Not even close to the same. Now granted, this beer is 5 days old today. 5 days old. So some things are going to change, obviously, but I've tasted enough fresh beer or early beer to know that there's a. It's not really fruity, but it's definitely estery, and it's not bad. It would be bad if you were concerned about it. Like like if someone was trying to pass this off as a cold fermented lager, I mean, any one of us here would be like, no, than basically the 2.5. So something's going on. Now, what is that something? Is it access to oxygen? Could be. Is it because it's shallow and wide instead of narrow and tall, reversing the square cube law, meaning more of that wart has surface to air ratio? That's a certain possibility. That's the only possibility I'm going on at this point. Like that it has to be that. It has to be like a reverse square cube, meaning since he's flat and shallow, he has more surface to air diffusion than someone in a fermenter. I mean, it has to. That's the only thing I can come up with. I don't think it's a pressure thing. I mean, it could be, but I don't think it would be that significant. I definitely think it's an oxygen thing. You know, once that Krausen comes too, he puts the lid on. So it's definitely, I think it definitely has something to do with pre-fermenting wort, surface diffusion of oxygen, surface volume is allowing that. I mean, that's really, that's right. That's basically what's gonna facilitate the yeast growth, right? You're not gonna get more yeast growth once you're fermenting. World, like I didn't. Oh, cool. Thanks. I just it's some like free rock station that's built into um my streaming app. That's a whole nother world. Like I didn't understand. Like I did a little bit of dabbling and streaming and stuff like that, but to really tweak the stream and all that stuff, that's a whole nother. I spent weeks learning all this streaming shit and all these different programs and all these different platforms and make sure everything's right for that. I got to repurpose a server, so I basically repurposed built, repurposed a giant server, a 4 processor server with 256 gigs of RAM and all kinds of crazy shit, so I can stream at 1080p 60 frames. So that was a big deal. So that was fun. I mean, like right now my CPU percentage is at 20%. So it takes a hell of a computer to be able to, you know, stream at these high quality settings. So I hope it looks good and sounds good and all that fun stuff. So I don't really like the half-ass thing, so that was a big undertaking. Big undertaking to build a server, to repurpose a server, to run an operating system that supports these stupid streaming programs with all the proper drivers and shit. That was magical. Anyways, I'm glad it looks good. This is actually a green screen, so I got to play around with that. I don't know if it was here before or not, but I really set this up, full honesty here, because my wife's a teacher, and we knew this was coming. Well, it allowed me to play with it because I love all the technology and stuff anyways. But we knew this was coming, this lockdown and this remote teaching and all that fun stuff. So I learned green screen and all this streaming stuff so she can go on and teach her class. She's basically gonna stream and be able to teach. So I got multiple cameras and all that fun stuff so she can teach her material, and there'll be a camera. There's a camera on her, and there's a camera on the material she's teaching, and have it cut in between the scenes and all that fun stuff. So that's really why I dedicated all this time. And then I thought, well, I could probably, you know, test it out and vet it and play with it. So that's why we're here. So I'm glad it's working. Kind of. It's almost like a little slight plasticky flavor. So for those who weren't here, I pulled out a can conditioned Hefeweizen. Yeah. That Pils threw me on. I hope it's not a Pils. A can conditioned Hefeweizen, and it's about a year old at least, and just decided to test it. But it was can conditioned, and it spent its whole life in this fridge next to me. It never moved after can conditioning, and it's surprisingly fresh. There's like this little estery flavor that's almost like plasticky, just for a hint. That definitely wasn't there when it was fresh, but it's still got tons of lingering malt. It's actually a really decent beer. If I was scoring it, it would probably be a solid 40s beer. It's not as fresh. So like, it's fresh. You know, as far as flavors, there's no cloying, sweetness, or anything weird. Obviously, I know it's not fresh because I know the age of it, and I tasted it when it was fresh. So, but if it went to a competition in these cans, definitely wouldn't be knocked for being oxidated or old. So, anyways, it was a test I didn't actually try to complete or anything like that. It just happened, and we decided to taste it today. It could be coming from the yeast too, if the yeast is that old. It's still decently doughy and nice. It's decent. It's definitely better fresh, but it's not bad now. Is the background music too loud at all? Should it be louder or should it be quieter? Cool. All right, I'll leave it as is. I mean, I pre-tested it. Perfect. Yeah, just a little something so it's not dead silence. Um, with that, I'm gonna head out too. It was a great session. All my videos will have like this DVR function, so they'll show up on the YouTube. And so if anyone, whatever, they'll be there. Who gives a shit? So have a good night, everyone. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk to you later.